best real estate advice you've received?
The best real estate advice I would say is that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to outwork the smartest person in the room. And I feel like that's how I grew my career. I was willing to do other things that agents weren't willing to do. I was willing to really work 24/7, live, eat, and breathe real estate. And I feel like that has led to my success.
Worst real estate advice you've received?
Well, for me personally, it's worked for other people, but I remember one of the first calls I had with someone, they told me to farm a specific area. And for me, my business was coming everywhere. And if I would have turned down business, my business wouldn't have grown if I said, oh, I only work this neighborhood. I can see, like I said, I've seen it work for other agents, but for me personally, I was of the mindset of, if I have the time in the day, I'm going to take the rental. I'm going to take the lead out in Gerald. I'm going to go as far as I can go to do as much business as I can.
Yeah, I love that. We're gonna dive into that in just a few minutes, but today, our guest is Kristee Leonard. She is a top producing Austin real estate broker. She is founder of The Leaders Realty, a trusted name in Central Texas real estate. She's a lifelong Austinite with 18 years of experience. Kristee brings unmatched local expertise, innovative marketing strategies, and a proven track record of results. Her success has earned recognition from the Austin Business Journal's Top 25 4X, Platinum Top 50 Realtors 10X, 2021 Forbes Real Estate Council Real Top Trends 1.5% in US, and Realtor Magazine's prestigious 30 under 30 list. You can follow her on her Instagram, which is Kristee Leonard. That's Kristee Leonard. And you can also find her website, her team site at theleadersrealty.com. We will have links to that in the show notes. Welcome, Kristee.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you because you have a particular energy to you that I think is fun and really, uplifting. You're my first interview of the year for the 2026, so that is always a special interview for me. And you've just have a real positive energy to you. So let's talk about you. Let's go all the way back. How'd you get into real estate?
Absolutely. So, how I got into real estate is when my parents got divorced. My mom did not have a college degree. And so, real estate was really one of her only options to try to sustain the same lifestyle that she had. So, I went to real estate classes with my mom before I went off to college, and just kind of like emotional support. We were doing it together. I went to college, and then I also studied abroad, and when I got back from studying abroad, I was just kind of like tired and over college, and I also wanted to help my mom. So, I moved from Florida back to Austin, got my real estate license. So I finished the classes and got my license, and I flew to Florida for my tests. And I sold real estate at the same time. This was my
Oh my
last
God.
semester of college.
You
So
were
I
selling real estate in college?
Yes, my senior year.
When everybody else was working at the local bar or, working these menial jobs, you were out there closing deals.
Yes. Well, and the thing is like, I feel like what has also led to my success is failure was not an option. So when my parents got divorced, my mom always had helped my dad with his businesses. He was an entrepreneur, but she didn't really have any background herself. And so when she got into real estate, literally it was like a complete 180. She didn't know if she was going to make the mortgage payment.
Sure.
Life had changed completely. So for me, I was like, I have to make it. Like, there is no option but to make it, which I feel like was the greatest blessing,
Yeah.
because I've hired agents in the past where I feel like if you have your parents to fall back on, then that's not really setting you up for success. You really have to not have any sort of safety net. I feel like
I've
you
heard
don't
it
have
refer-
any backup. Yeah.
I've heard it referred to as the gift of desperation.
That's exactly the gift of desperation that I am actually so thankful for, because that is what I attribute to my success. But that's how I got into real estate. Was not that I always grew up knowing this is what I want to do. It was more just to help my mom. And actually, after I graduated, I wanted to feel like I was using my degree, so I went into day trading, and I worked at Kirshner Trading for a little while. And that gave me a whole new appreciation for real estate, because I realized that was not my calling. And so I went back to focusing 100% on real estate. And that's when things really started to take off. And I didn't know that it was my calling, but it is absolutely my calling and what I will be doing the rest of my life. I don't see myself switching careers.
Wow. Well, we have a huge trading sort of industry here in Chicago as well. We have mercantile exchange, and there's a lot of day traders here, and it is that is a rough job, definitely a
Yes.
rough job. But
Yeah.
why did you decide to return back to real estate?
Because I knew quickly, so I wanted to. I gave day trading about 6 months. I wanted to give it a go and see if it was something I was interested in, and I realized that it wasn't a fit for me. There were gentlemen there that did amazing, and the sky was the limit, just like it is in real estate. But for me personally, I felt like it was gambling. It just didn't like.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was born to do. So that's what made me get back into real estate. And when I got back into real estate, because initially when I got into real estate, it was I wanted to be there to help my mom. And then it was once I graduated, it was like, well, I want to figure out what my calling is. And then after trying day trading, I was like, okay, real estate is my calling. And then I gave it, everything.
It's truly an amazing story, and you've just kept going, and really achieving a lot in a very short amount of time. I want to talk about how do you think about your day. So I always think, we interview these amazing producers on the show, and it always starts with the day. So walk us through a day in the life of Kristee Leonard.
Well, I wish my days, so I have gone through different structures of my day. Before COVID, I was getting up really early. So, for example, I would have agents that would reply back to me and say, Kristee, are we farmers? Because I'm like emailing them at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I had this really rigid schedule. And then I felt like during the pandemic, I would have everybody's lives was upside down, and clients were wanting to do offers again at like 11 o'clock at night, and things were just all over the place. So I felt like I didn't really have a schedule. Um, Now, as far as my schedule is concerned, I like going to bed early and waking up early, but as you know, we've got to be there for our clients. If our client wants to make an offer at 11, we're there making, or at least I am there. I have no boundaries. I am there making the offer at 11. So yes, but my perfect day would be to go to bed early, to wake up early, because you always feel like, I feel like when you're getting up earlier than everybody else, it removes the chaos, because you just feel like you're starting your day ahead of time to tackle everything. Whereas sometimes if you're just entering into the chaos, then it feels like you're constantly behind. But real estate is not, every day is different. And I know that some agents are like, okay, I do my seller updates on Monday, and I do this on Tuesday, and I do this on Wednesday. And unfortunately, I would say, like, what my clients like about me is that they can, like today, I had a client text me and say, hey, can I get into this property? And I'm Johnny on the spot, like, yes you can, I'll get in there after this closing. Not like, oh well, today I have this structured.
Right. So you're more
So most of my
flexible.
days, like, yeah, I mean, to give you an example, like today I had a closing, I then had a showing after the closing, I met with some other clients and showed them a couple properties. So my days vary, really, and I wish I could say I had more structure. But one thing Tom Ferry said, I recently had gone to a conference. He said, buyers want convenience and sellers want a track record. So if you're working with buyers, they don't even care They should, but they don't always necessarily care that I have 18 years in the business. They want to get in this house right now, you
Right.
know? So, I hope that's helpful.
No, that is super helpful because when we want groceries, we can tap on our phones. When we want a lift to a downtown event, we can just call up Uber. And we want things when we want them. We want them quickly. And real estate sort of falls into that category, even though it's not a quick transaction. But the
Yeah.
idea of seeing real estate, is kind of a fast moving or fast paced moving sort of process these days. So I think you're right. This idea of being super flexible and malleable to be able to react quickly is really important these days. I talk to a lot of I talk to senior leadership over at Zillow quite often, and I always ask them, like, who are the agents that do the best with your leads? And they say, oh, the ones that pick up the phone, and when we live transfer, they immediately set the appointment. So what's interesting is, this person fills out the form and clicks, I want to see it, and then they live transfer it, and then the person on the other end just literally is like, okay, when are we going to go see this? That's like the first thing they do before they even introduce themselves. And it's like, why don't they introduce themselves first? Oh, because the person already knows what they want. Yes, you will introduce yourself. Yes, you'll go through a whole, here's what I am and here's why I'm great. But you have to sort of address their need. And you seem like somebody who is really good at being reactive to your clients' needs.
Yes, I try to be.
Yeah, let's talk. What would you say is your superpower? Like, what would your clients say is your superpower?
I would say my clients always say that I have like an old fashioned work ethic. They always say that. I think that they always say, "Does Kristee ever sleep?" I don't know that like my attributes are something that is necessarily what people want to follow, but they appreciate that I am responsive 7 days a week. They appreciate my thoroughness and my diligence and my response time. I know that, a lot of people are trying to get a work life balance, and that is not something that I have achieved yet in my real estate career.
Well, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of agents who are at the very top of the mountain, all across the country, and all of them say there is no such thing as work-life balance. But we strive for it. We want it, but balance is just not possible. It doesn't mean your life has to be chaos, but it's certainly, if you want a certain level of success, you are going to work for it, and you are the obvious the the example here because you outwork people. Tell us what you mean when you say you outwork other agents.
Oh, on multiple levels. I mean, you're not going to call my phone and hear that like, a lot of recordings are like, I'm not working on Sunday or I don't answer my phone past 7. You're not going to get that with me. The last 3 times, so pretty much most of my real estate career, I didn't even want to go on vacation because I wanted to be here working. But recently, I've made more of an effort to just do little weekend trips. And the last 3 times I went to California, I executed a deal each time. And one of them was on my 40th birthday. And my dad was like, "Oh, I feel bad. You're working on your 40th birthday." And I'm like, "No, this is like a present to me because I'm paying for this trip. I'm getting, a deal. I can take the time to write an offer." And I find that to be actually very exciting. I don't look at it as like, "Oh, I'm inconvenienced. I'm working on vacation." I'm like, "Oh, I just got a present during vacation."
It almost seems to you to be like an honor to be able to work this profession.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I
Let-
I am very thankful that my clients choose me and that I get the repeat business and loyalty that I get from them. I don't take that for granted. I think I was looking on the Texas Real Estate Commission website, and just for Travis County alone, there were over 33,000 licenses in
oh,
Travis County for us,
wow.
for agents and brokers. And I'm like, okay, out of that many, for someone to choose you, it is an honor.
It it truly is. And that's a great point. And you treat them like uh they're an honor. And that's
Yeah.
and people can feel that, right? I think people really can feel that when you work with a service person and you can tell they're into their job and they appreciate that you are the customer. And I think that mentality, you certainly have it. A lot of the people I've interviewed on the show have it. Pretty much everyone has it on the show. And I love that is just being into the job, being kind of into it is one of the biggest like tips I can give people. It's kind of an intangible thing, not to, it's hard to sort of talk about, but it's like this idea of just like, I'm in, fully in.
Well, and now that you say that, actually one thing I do want to focus on is if you're going to take a client, you need to give them your all. It shouldn't be like, oh, well, this is just a rental, or oh, this is just a $200,000 property. If you choose to take on that client, then you need to represent them just like if they were a multi-million dollar deal. And that really, I feel like, is how I run my business. That if I'm not going to be able to do that, then I shouldn't be taking on the client.
Let's talk about standards because you
Yeah.
have very high standards for yourself. So tell us a little bit about what you expect of yourself with your clients.
Oh my goodness. As far as my standards with my clients, I would say, for me it's very very important to have a quick right before I got on this, I was texting my clients saying like, hey, I'm going to be a bit unavailable during this time frame, because they are used to Kristee like responding back to them within seconds. So I would say response time is
Yeah.
very very important to me, but I'm also very thorough throughout the whole process. So I have checklist. I actually do not have a contract to close person. I like to do the contract to close because there are a lot of things that I catch during the contract to close that I feel are important. And so, really, I feel like the service that I give my clients is more, I consider myself a real estate advisor. I don't consider myself just another realtor. So, I'll give you an example. I had a property that had sold multiple times. Well, when my clients bought it, we discovered that the water heater was not permit. I mean, not the water heater. The septic system had not the permit had not been finalized. Well, that had already been through multiple transactions that nobody
Wow.
caught. You know, and so it's just really, I feel like, setting the bar of just it not just being a transaction, but being very detailed throughout the transaction, like you are an advisor. So I would say that's how I run my business, is just having, I feel like, the knowledge that I have and the experience that I have sets me apart from other realtors, and just being more detailed in the process.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And we can see that now you run a brokerage now. So how do you devote sort of time to your own business and also growing your team?
Yeah, so I have been a broker since 2010, and I always knew. And at that time, you only had to be licensed 2 years before you could get your broker's license, and a lot of my college counted towards credit towards it. So I just innately knew once I hit that 2 year mark, I'm going to get my broker's license. Whether I stayed at the brokerage I was at or not, that was always something that I wanted to do, and I was generating my business. And so I didn't really feel like there was a need for me to stay at the brokerage. The only thing was that people would say, oh, you're at the number one brokerage in Austin. And, so to be able to use that in listing appointments and things like that. But really, my business went from being an agent that was doing like 3 million a year to my best year, I did over 50 individually. And so that had being an independent broker had no effect. I feel like people care more about the actual person who's representing them than what the brokerage name is, or that has been my experience. As far as running my real estate day to day, throughout my career, I have brought other agents on, but if you run the numbers, you have to have a lot of agents for the split to make sense, where you're bringing in the income that you could bring in just on your own. And personally, I feel like management is not my gift. And I think it's also important just to recognize your gifts, because the trajectory that a lot of people are on is that you are to build a team. But
Right.
that is not my calling, and that's not where I feel like I'm going to thrive. There are actually some individual agents that have structures kind of like more of a business where they have showing agents that show their properties, but they solely, they're not focused on their own business. They're just solely working for that individual agent. That is more my style, as far as like what I see for my future. I don't see myself growing a team. And really, at one point, I thought, okay, I'll work actively in the business. And then when I'm ready to be more passive, then I will grow a brokerage. And honestly, I just don't even think that. I think I've pivoted in what my goals are. And I don't think that I want to grow a brokerage because I really feel like I'd have to have like at least 100 agents to make it make sense. And that I just realized in working in real estate what I enjoy. And I think that's something that's important is you don't necessarily have to be on the same path that everybody's on.
Right.
It's what is best for you and what do you enjoy. So my path, what I see myself is, like I said, my best year I did over 50. I could see myself being an agent that's doing 100, 200, but more on an individual agent type structure instead of a team structure. So that's kind of where I see my business going. I still enjoy meeting with clients. I still enjoy going on listing presentations. Um, so that's where I'm at right now.
I love that. So you have figured out through managing an office, through thinking about maybe I should have my own team, and your own efforts. Like I really like the one-to-one, uh, you know, uh, relationship. I like working directly with buyers, directly with sellers. That's my thing. I'm good at it. It pumps me up. It's what I'm best at. And you're going to lean into that and step on the gas. So,
Yes.
and by the way, you've tried a lot of things as well, right? So, well, I want to talk about that a little bit because you will pick up opportunities that a lot of agents will maybe just pass on by. So, talk a little bit about some of that.
Yes, absolutely. So, one thing I've gone through different niches in my career, but one thing to hone in on is that I think that it's important if you are a new agent in the business to really work anything that comes your way within your level of comfort. Obviously, they say, don't work areas that you're not familiar with, but within your level of comfort and what your broker can assist you with, I think that it's important to work rentals, whether it be on the list side or the tenant side. I have one client where that rental, they came here from California. They were looking at a rental that was like $3,000 a month. And I've sold over 4 million to that client, just because I worked that rental. And the thing too is the year I was selling over 50 million, I was working rentals. So I think that as long as you have the time in the day, it's really no different than taking someone to coffee or to lunch. You're building a relationship and you don't know where that relationship can go. They might, even if they didn't buy a home, they might have someone that they would refer to you. So I think that it is important because one thing I have noticed in working with newer agents, just even here in my area, is they'll say, "Oh, well, I only work Central Austin." And I'm like, "I would love to only work Central Austin too, but you don't have that luxury. Like, if you want to succeed, you need to be willing to do everything. And then, obviously, if you get to a point where you can be selective because you have so much business, that's great. But I think it's really important to just work everything that you can.
Yeah, let's talk about your brand. So, tell me about when you think about your brand, what comes to mind?
Okay, when I think about my brand, I think luxury. But that is one thing that I actually have. I often have to correct people because I will have um, potential leads or clients that think like, "Oh, Christie's not going to work this," and I say, "No, I will work everything." Like last year, I think my sales I had a condo at 200,000 and then a home sale at 4 million. So if I have the time, I work it across the board. But in my presentation, of course, nobody should be doing this, but you're not going to be seeing iPhone photos. Everything is going to be professional photography. But I feel like I also just take it to another level because it's not just a matter of what is the minimum level of service I can provide. If you go to my Instagram, follow it. A lot of my content is a professional videographer that's doing it, trying to stay trendy and ahead. Um, and as far as the marketing that I prepare for my clients, it's really just trying to come across first class. I want, from the flyers to the photos to the 3D tours and the videos and everything, I want everything to look professional because ultimately that is my brand. In every client that I work in, every marketing piece, it's just for me it's important to come across as professional and well put together.
Yeah, and you have a very consistent brand and a very high end brand, I should say a luxury brand. And how have you found that works in the way of referrals? So what part of your business is you going out finding business versus clients referring to you?
Absolutely. So most of my business is repeat clients and referrals, but I'm glad, speaking to the brand, I on Instagram, I used to make more of an effort to target other realtors on Instagram than to try to target buyers or sellers because I knew that if a realtor was referring it to me, that was already a hot lead. They already knew the person, they were ready to go. You weren't having, a lot of times people get these leads from Facebook and it's like, "Oh great, you're getting hundreds of leads that you have to call. Who knows who's going to buy?"
Wait,
Um
let's slow this down because I want
yeah.
to hear this because I this is really interesting. So you're talking about getting B2B leads basically. How do I get leads? You're getting leads from other agents on social media. Tell us about that.
Yes. So when I first kind of started my social media, a lot of times if you follow people, they will follow you back. Now Instagram limits how many times you can do that and they'll start cutting you off. But I would follow other realtors and then innately they would follow me back. So, just to give some examples, there's a realtor. She has a really great social media presence. She's actually pivoted from real estate now, but she's in Houston. Her name's Julia Wang. And she found me on Instagram through, at that time, she was just searching like luxury realtor Austin, something like that. It came up, I popped up. And we still have never met to this day, but she brought me a waterfront listing on Lake Travis because she found me on Instagram. So that was more organic. I had not connected with her yet. She found me through searching on Instagram. But I also have just been connected with agents who see my content over and over again. I had a realtor in my own market who she felt like she was not a luxury realtor and her sister wanted to sell her luxury home, her and her husband. And so she actually referred her own sister to me for a referral fee when she was in the market. She could have sold it herself, but she felt like my branding was luxury branding and she wanted a luxury realtor. So there have been several instances like that where I've generated business from Instagram, both organically and then trying to target other realtors as far as. And one thing I haven't done, but I know a lot of people are doing, is they're trying to just generate conversations. People will just message other accounts and start trying to connect with them and generate a relationship with them.
Yeah, I yeah, that's very it's very interesting. I want to talk about social media. So, how do you approach social media and what kind of content do you like to push out there?
Absolutely. So, a lot of my content that I'm pushing out on social media are my own listings. So, I feel like other realtors can appreciate and see how I am marketing my listings. So, they know if they refer a client to me, what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to be working for them and for their referral client. I I think there's a lot of room for improvement on my Instagram. I don't do a whole lot of like educational, which would be more targeting a buyer or seller. And I know a lot of agents do home tours. The tours that I'm doing are my own listings. But again, this kind of goes back to my strategy of honing more on realtors than actually buyer and seller leads, because the realtors are seeing and appreciating how I market for my clients.
That's really interesting. So you almost go after realtors more than the consumers themselves.
Yes, I do. I think that in the future, I could see myself adding on to my marketing strategy. But initially, when I got into Instagram, I felt like I'm not one where I want to sit around and call 100 leads. I
Right.
want to know, whoever comes to me is ready to buy or sell. And so I felt like I would have a better chance of that coming from a realtor.
That's really interesting. I think you're probably the first person in 700 episodes that has ever really gone that particular path. It's yeah, it's kind of blowing my mind. So the idea is you want to be the person that they refer to because your brand is so solid, is so tight, and it's so luxury that that's they're going to have just an amazing experience.
Yes, I actually, one thing I just thought of, a realtor out of Hawaii. I sold. She had a property here. Now this was not on the luxury. It was a rental property she had here. But again, she just was seeing how I was marketing homes, and so she wanted me to list her own property.
Wow. That is wild. So, yeah, so let's talk about how you go about, finding business. So and I know you've been in the business now a long time, so you get a lot of repeat clients. But if we picked you up and we put you in a different town where you didn't know anyone and you weren't you didn't grow up there, what would you do to start generating business?
Okay, well, one thing that I could definitely improve on, but that I want to share. So, there's this realtor in my market who was holding open houses at my listings, and she's only been in the business a few years. From one of my listings, she sold a $5 million home. From
Mhm.
another one of my listings, she sold a $3.5 million home. And these buyers didn't buy my listing, but she got the lead. And so that's one thing I feel like agents need to get back into the basics.
Yes.
Open houses are a huge opportunity. And so if I were to go into a new market, I would say I would heavily focus on open houses, which is so basic, but that is something that I was really mind blown, because whenever I hold an open house, it's for my seller. And my mentality, and a lot of times too, I have so much business that my mentality has always been I'm trying to sell that home for my client, not what clients can I get out of this,
Sure.
because I'm the listing agent. It's a different mentality. When I was talking to her, she said, "Kristee, I actually think I get more leads on the homes that are not my listings that I'm holding open versus when I hold open my own listings," because she thinks that also there's just a different rapport with the buyer that comes in, and there might be a little bit more of a shield
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
I think that's right. That's interesting because when somebody comes in and they don't feel like, "Hey, this isn't my place. I'm not selling this." There's a casualness, there's a comfort there. There's like, "Hey, I'm just here. I'm kind of just here." And I think that breaks down some barriers maybe and makes it
Yes.
people feel comfortable.
Absolutely. So that's something, if I were to go to a new market, I think that there are people out there. It's all a matter of getting back to what we said in the beginning and really being someone that's going to outwork your competition. I have realtors that reach out to me to hold my listings open, and they're doing multiple open houses in a day. Well, let me tell you, those agents are going to be successful because they're willing to put in the work. It's the agents that don't want to hold the open houses and don't want to work and want everything to fall into their lap. That's what makes the difference. So I don't think it's about, you really have to like think outside the box here. You just have to get back to the basics, but do the basics.
And if you didn't have listings, you would just go up to somebody who has listings like you, or people do this to you now and go, "Please let me do an open house for you."
Absolutely. Yes. I have so many agents that reach out to me about that. But I have a realtor friend in California, and I feel like door knocking is more prevalent there. It's not as prevalent here in Austin. Maybe it's more welcomed there, but she will go, they'll door knock if they have a buyer looking in the neighborhood. And then
Wow.
that can turn into a seller, just by creating that relationship.
Yeah, I interviewed somebody in California. This is really interesting. Who used to work in entertainment. He was worked as a production person for movies, and he did it for 15 years. Then he became a realtor. And I said, "Oh, you must have got all your business from the entertainment industry that you worked in." He goes, "No, no, none of those people ended up using me as a realtor. I had to kind of start over." And I said, "Oh, well, how did you do it?" He said, "I would go to homes that I really thought were super cool, and I would walk to to a house. I would knock on the door. I was dressed in a suit." And he said, I would know a lot about the house, and I would see if the owner was home. And I would say, "I am such a fan of this house. Um, I know you're probably not looking to sell or move anytime soon, but when you are, could you please let me know? Because I want an opportunity to try to either bring you a buyer or maybe even list this property for you. Like, this is a dream house for me." And he would just know things about it. He was like a fan. He would basically go up to these luxury homes and say, "I am such a fan of this house. I know things about it. Tell me about it. Tell me the story of this house." And he said it was the smartest thing he ever did. He was from Canada, and he would knock on the door. And I mean, imagine if somebody came to your door and said, "Oh my God, I love your property." Like, you would be so flattered, right? So there are ways to do this that aren't creepy or weird, or you're going to get a gun, greeting you at the door. But that's what he does. He would door knock, and that's how he built his business.
Well, and when you were saying that, I think something that's so important is sellers want someone who's excited about their home. I will say that's actually something that I've struggled with recently because I feel like most markets saw a shift, when interest rates changed. And I have to I don't go into a listing appointment sugarcoating things. I'm not going to take an overpriced listing. And so when I go in there recently, I feel like in my appointments, I've been very matter of the fact when it comes to like where the market is, where the pricing is, and just setting realistic expectations. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And sometimes that can lead to kind of a seller feeling like there's a lack of enthusiasm about their property. So I think that's a really good point that you made, that I think innately sellers really want to feel like the person who is representing their property is excited about it and passionate about it. So that's a great strategy that he's using.
Yeah, I agree. It was really unique, and I thought that that was really cool. And you should be into the home that you're listing. You should think it's
Yes.
cool,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
yeah, and I bet you sort of work the same way as well. Um, let's talk a little bit about sort of the future for you. So, how do you see yourself continuing to evolve as a realtor?
Absolutely. So I'm sure there are several of us like that are listening. If you've been in the market a while, you might have been, I guess, a little, I don't know what the right word is. I don't think discouraged is the right word, but after 2022, things changed.
Yep.
And in my real estate career, every year was always better than the previous year. And then after 2022, my sales went down. And I've always been very goal oriented and had goals for myself. But after around that time frame, I kind of stopped having goals. I was a little burnt out. And I really was just passively working my business, still working very hard, but I felt like it was like whatever came in. There wasn't a goal up there that I was trying to achieve. And that's really where I am trying to shift my focus now. Is I want to beat my best year and I want to grow. And for me, I'm not props to anybody that wants to sell 300 homes in a year. That's great, but my goal is not for that. My goal is to increase my overall sales volume, but try to maintain. I think I'm comfortable around like 60 deals a year. So for me, obviously, what that means is just like increasing the average sales price. But I want to get more. I'm very good about marketing my own listings and really trying to find, always trying to serve the client and know what the new thing is out there for marketing. For example, like when Zillow showcase listings came out, trying to be, and like on realtor.com, you can boost the listing, trying to know everything that's out there for a seller to market a seller's property. So my marketing has always been focusing on my listings, not focusing on marketing myself per se. And that also, I know, for example, with postcards, you have to be consistent, and I was not consistent with that. But where I'm going in the future is I have a lot of repeat business and referrals. Last year, my repeat business and referrals was like probably 90 to 95%. It's primarily that. And so going into the future and how I see growing my business is really being more strategic on growing my lead source instead of passively working it. I mean, I feel like I get calls almost daily of, "Oh, hey Kristee, my rental, I don't want to renew my rental. I want to sell it," or this or that. So I get a lot of, I'm very good at having my repeat business and loyalty, but I do want to be more strategic in trying to generate new business. So that's where I see myself, and really I feel like my target goal is, I want to reach 100 million, but then I can see myself trying to keep on beating that. But that's kind of like a new target.
Amazing. What is hard for you right now?
Well, I would say one of my flaws is, for the longest time, I feel like I have to do everything myself. And you have to scale your business. You cannot do everything. And that kind of goes back to when agents would be like, "What are we, farmers?" Because I'd be emailing at 4 o'clock in the morning, or I'd be posting like on Facebook my listing at like 1 a.m. I was just doing everything. And so I got a virtual assistant probably back in 2021, around that time frame, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. My virtual assistant is amazing. He went back to school, so I have a new virtual assistant who I've had for a while. He's been amazing, but I feel like a lot of agents, and not just in real estate, across the board in businesses, like my brother, he's an entrepreneur and he has multiple VAs. A lot of people are getting multiple VAs. And then there's companies that are training the VAs specifically for real estate. I have a friend, 30 under 30, and he has a business where he now has a VA business and they train them specifically for real estate. But yeah, I would say, that's one of the best things in my business is getting a VA, but then I need to be better about scaling, but I feel like that looks different for me than for other agents.
What do you have your VA do?
Okay, so my VA, he does all my email flyers. I approve everything, but so in Constant Contact, he goes in and he creates all my email flyers. He creates my email flyers and Fraser Flyers, which is a company that sends out flyers to realtors. He creates all the reverse prospecting databases to emails. So we create the reverse prospecting for the listing and then email them about open houses, price reductions. We generate a database of neighbors for a listing, and he adds that to Constant Contact. So rather than, I know the strategy can be show up to the open house early and door knock the closest 10 homes. We email a wider radius of neighbors, and invite them to the open house. So I feel like that's more effective than just knocking on 10 doors. He does all my social media postings. So, for example, if I have a new listing, he generates the post, he sends it to me for approval, and then he's copy and pasting it across the platforms. I'm the one who's always posting on my stories, so it's still a lot of engagement from me. I would never hire a company that just does like these generated, posts that they do on every single realtor. I want it to be very personal. And then also, I know some agents or friends of mine that they will only post certain things on their Instagram and they tell the seller, like, oh, I'll post yours on Facebook. I post all my stuff. So it's not like a consistent luxury branding in the sense that I'm posting all of my properties at all price points. But then we also delete things like after they've sold, just to kind of clean up the Instagram. But he's doing all my social media. I just asked him to put together a listing presentation for me. He's going to do an updated buyer presentation for me. Just really anything that I would have put on the back burner. Um, he is helping me to accomplish that.
I love that. And Kristee, we should mention that you are in Austin, which of course is a place where people, Texas is one of those states these days where people are traveling to, they're migrating to, they're retiring to, and Austin is one of those places in Texas where they land. So we have a lot of listeners out there and they would love to connect with you. And we talked about referrals earlier. So tell us a little bit about, how they should connect with you if one of our audience members has a buyer or seller that might be a good fit for you.
Absolutely. Whatever is easiest for them. They can message me on Instagram. They can text me. They can call me. My number is 512-695-5144. They can email me, Kristee at theleadersrealty.com. I would be honored to work with your client and I would want it to come back to you and make you look wonderful. So I would work extra hard for them, but that would be amazing. Also, if anybody wants to reach out to me because they have a question, I'm all about collaboration over competition. So if you know me, I am answering calls and questions from realtors and just really trying to help each other out.
Kristee Leonard is our guest today. She is just a ball of energy and positive energy and just a lot of fun, and somebody who is really just moving at the speed of light in a way that is truly impressive. Kristee, thank you so much for your time on the show today. We want to thank Kristee on behalf of our audience for spending time, which I know you don't have, and you've even still chose to spend it here with us. On behalf of Kristee and myself, we want to thank the audience for continuing to stick around till the end of the episode. Thank our sponsors as well. We want to also have everybody out there check out Kristee's Instagram, which is Kristee Leonard. So, and that's two E's, Kristee Leonard. We'll have a link to that in the show notes, and also the Leaders Realty website as well. So if you have clients that are moving in and out of Austin, that is the person to reach out to. Kristee, thank you so much for your time on the show today, and we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Kristee.
Thank you for having me. Bye.